All right, this just in. Good news. If you're Ukrainian and you find yourself a Russian tank, you do not have to declare it as income on your taxes. Be right back. If you went back in time 10 years ago and you were to tell people that entire countries would depend on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and crypto for their donations, nobody would have believed you. Think about how far Bitcoin has come since 2009, when it was just an idea amongst the handful of people called cypherpunks who were posting their ideas on these message boards, right? It was tiny, the size of maybe a couple $100,000, but it was just big enough for people to stick around and experiment with what it could someday become. Which is why by 2011, Bitcoin started to be used for the World Wide Web, right? It was used in transactions and in marketplaces like the Silk Road, which was this a really interesting marketplace that by 2012 did $15 million worth of annual transactions. By 2013, it was shut down by the government. Bitcoin was ignored. But a few people stuck around because they noticed that maybe Bitcoin could be used for something even more useful. Maybe it could be used as a speculative hedge against inflation, which is why by 2012, there were new crypto businesses, tiny little marketplaces where people could buy and sell Bitcoin and other cryptos to each other. By April 2012, Bitcoin reached a $43 million market cap, and a little more people started to become aware of it. And by 2014, a few big businesses started to slowly experiment with it, which is why you could buy furniture on Overstock with Bitcoin. There was also the Winklevoss twins who launched Gemini. They were working with regulators on approvals and licenses. What? This was unheard of at the time. There was also even private money like Andreessen Horowitz, who poured tens of millions of dollars into crypto startups. Bitcoin was worth roughly $600 a coin at the time. That's when I started getting into it, had no idea what I was buying, but I started investing. By the end of 2014, Bitcoin 10x'd. It went from $1 billion to $10 billion. But the world ignored it. By 2017, even bigger money got into it. People like Paul Tudor Jones, MassMutual, PayPal, Square. It started to become a lot easier to buy and safely store Bitcoin for the average person. By the end of 2017, Bitcoin hit over $300 billion. But still, the world kind of ignored it. It was a fad, it was Beanie Babies, it was rat poison. People who buy Bitcoin are stupid, and someday they'd pay the price. But a few more people stuck around to find out what this Bitcoin thing is all about, which is why, by the end of 2021, Bitcoin surpassed a $1 trillion market cap. And it's not just private equity anymore. It's also Fortune 500 companies like Tesla that have started to integrate it and add it to their balance sheet to preserve their purchasing power in the face of inflation. There's also hedge funds, pension funds, and even countries that are starting to integrate it. Started with El Salvador, now it's Ukraine, Russia's most wealthy elite, and even Lugano, a city in Switzerland. So the progress is there, even though it's a little slow. But what's most interesting to me right now is that people are still calling Bitcoin volatile and dangerous, especially if you compare it to the stock market. But check this out. In the last few days, Russia's energy stocks have lost as much as 99% of their value. One of their biggest banks right now went from $15 a share to 5 cents a share. I don't know about you, but I don't remember the last time Bitcoin suddenly dropped to become a penny stock valuation. But that's probably because it never happened. And the world is still kind of ignoring Bitcoin, and we've come full circle. So in today's video, I want to share with you how Bitcoin is shaping history and how a few more people are going to notice it again. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the longest intro ever. So first I want to say, could we create a DAO together where we could bid collectively on the seized billionaire yachts? Because it'd be so cool to have one. Except we should call it the Broke Ape Yacht Club, because in Soviet Russia, markets hodl you. I don't know what that means, but here's what's going on with Bitcoin and Ethereum. On February 26th, Ukraine tweeted out that it was accepting Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, and other stablecoin donations. And since then, they have received over 225 Bitcoins worth roughly $9.8 million, over 5,000 Ethereum worth $14.6 million, $5 million in Polkadot donated by David Wood. Thank you, David Wood. He's the creator of Polkadot. Another $1.4 million donated in Solana, the competitor to Ethereum, And just recently, they started accepting Dogecoin, for which they've received a little over $60,000 worth. We are finding new utilities for crypto every single day, which includes paying the Russian military over $50,000 for each surrendered military tank. To see this kind of crowdfunding is so beautiful because we are changing global events in real time from the comfort of our own home. And that's empowering. But it doesn't even stop there because people are also leveraging the power of NFTs to help Ukraine. An NFT of the Ukrainian flag, for example, was just recently sold for 2,258 Ethereum, worth roughly $6.75 million, with proceeds going to an organization that helps civilians and the military with resources. Now you might be wondering, who has the rights to create a flag of an entire nation and then sell it, and then who has the money to buy it? It's actually really cool what happened because the people that bought it is the Ukrainian DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Basically, a bunch of people got together, created the flag, and the winning bid also came from the same people that created it. It was a pool of over 3,000 people that pitched in and donated, and now they have irrevocable proof on the blockchain of their contribution. There was also CryptoPunk number 5364, which is worth roughly $233,000. Now, any normal person at this point might be wondering, why would you give NFTs and crypto, and why can't you just be a normal person and donate dollars instead of having to deal with the headache of the risk and the fees associated with crypto? And that's a really good question. And the way that I understand it is, when you encourage people to participate in NFTs, more people are excited to be a part of it because we all want to be a part of something greater than ourselves. And what better way is there to incentivize people to donate when you give them a little bit of selfish proof and evidence that they participated in such an important global event that they have something on their phone that they could show their friends that they were there. So you can kind of think of NFTs as sort of like war bonds, but cooler. Personally, I did not go that route. I decided to donate directly to Save the Children using Be Charitable, which is a non-profit. They have no shareholders, no investors. I love them, so if you want to help me out, this is how I'm helping Ukraine. You can donate here. I will donate 100% of the proceeds, and I will match dollar for dollar every single thing I get. The goal is to get to $10,000 and hopefully beyond. But now let's talk about the impact that all of this will have on the future of crypto. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. So I've personally always wanted to learn how to invest like the ultra rich, which is why today's sponsor is Titan. Titan is the world's first investment platform for everyday investors who want their money actively managed by their team of experts. Their goal is to grow our investments by 15% per year, which would imply doubling our money roughly every 5 years or so. Now, one of my favorite parts about this app is that it gives you updates and even videos that shows you exactly why they're investing the way they do, so you get to learn the thesis behind their investing strategy. Here's how it works. You get the app, you put in your profile details, and it gives you a customized portfolio based on your risk tolerance. Now, since this is a sponsored video and I'm a client of Titan's, I put in my own money just to see how well it compares against investing in the stock market over the long term. Now, based on my risk tolerance, my money was split up 60% into flagship, which are big name, high quality companies and big stocks. That's 15 to 25 stocks right here. Another 17.5% into opportunities, which is the small cap sector, 15 to 25 stocks here. Another 17.5% into offshore, which represents another 15 to 25 handpicked stocks in the emerging market, and another 5% in crypto, which represents 5 to 10 handpicked cryptos. All it takes is $100 to get started, and if you go to titan.com/Andrei, you'll get your first 3 months of investment management for 0 fees. That's titan.com/Andrei. Thank you, Titan, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now let's get back to it. As exciting as all of this stuff and all of these developments are, I think now more than ever, it's important to keep a balanced perspective about what's going on. And I don't want to rain on my own parade, but the truth is, the reason the price goes up can kind of be summarized by this 3-second short video. When you think Bitcoin could save the world, but then you realize it can't yet. And what I mean by that is, the real reason that Bitcoin is going up is not necessarily because of the demand from Russia or Ukraine, but it's from the narrative that crypto is this tool for liberation. It's that excitement and that passion, and what Jerome Powell just recently said, that there could be more than one world reserve currency. And all the crypto investors, especially the people who own Bitcoin, get really excited about that rumor because maybe Bitcoin could be the next world reserve currency. And hopefully it is, but it's that kind of rumor that creates that momentum. So if this tragedy between Russia and Ukraine has taught me anything, it's that crypto still has a long way to go. And here's why. Think about it like this. If you're somebody who's living in Russia and you were sent Bitcoin, it's not going to do you much good because you probably won't be able to convert it to anything useful like dollars or rubles anyway. I'm sure there are ways to do it, but it's very hard, especially if you're a 75-year-old babushka who is not very tech savvy. Now, I have family in Russia, and every single day it's becoming harder and harder to send money. Apple Pay, for example, has been disabled. The App Store has been shut down. You can't even download new apps there. The credit card companies like MasterCard and Visa have stopped serving Russia. The other credit card companies that we think of when we think of crypto, like BitPay or BlockFi or Crypto.com, which I don't think they would have access to anyway, have also shut down their services because remember, they are powered by MasterCard and Visa. Google Pay has also been disabled. PayPal has frozen their funds, which means whatever they have in their account, they can't transfer from there to their banks, so that's useless too. So then I thought about physical shipping services like UPS and FedEx. Maybe I could send them a hardware wallet that contains the crypto so they have direct access. But that won't work either because FedEx and UPS have stopped shipping to Russia. The point is, crypto's usefulness as a payment system right now is completely dependent on the bridge between itself and the centralized banking system. And as long as that bridge is cut, then it's very hard to use crypto to leverage that tool to send money to them. Especially if you're Russia as a country and you need to move billions of dollars, because then it's that much harder to find that kind of liquidity. The truth is, we could both agree on the utility, usefulness, and value of Bitcoin, and yes, it has a bright future ahead of it. But we also need the world's commerce to agree with us so we could use it there. Otherwise, it's just another tool for us, the rich. And by the rich, I mean first world countries that have excess wealth to protect from inflation. But ordinary people living in Ukraine and in Russia don't have excess wealth to protect. That's why they need real money now and not tomorrow. And all of this, I think, is a good sign for crypto because there's room to grow. That's why we need people like Elon Musk and Tesla and Jeff Bezos and Amazon to integrate Bitcoin so we can buy our favorite things with Bitcoin rather than using the middleman that is the dollar. All of that will eventually come, but for now, that's the reality we live in. As usual, have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. All the free stuff is linked down below. Don't forget to check it out. Love you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you back here on Monday and Friday, sometimes a Wednesday. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.